All right, we are on air live. This is Marky Ramone with my sidekick Todd, and we are here to interview
Desiree Kent.
Desiree Kent, who wrote an interesting book that I want to read because it's such a big part of my life right now. So, Desiree, the name of your book is 100
First dates.
First Dates.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on 100 first dates, and you recorded. Did you do a diary of all of them? Thank you.
So
A collection of encounters that will make you laugh, cry, and cringe. And yes,
I think the quote at the top is one of my favorite
I
things.
don't make mistakes. I date them.
Right. So I think that says a lot about dating in my 20s and what that experience was like for me. I mean, part of it is about my dating experiences, but part of it is also how I've grown as a person and what I've learned about my boundaries and what I want and what I definitely don't want, and how I've grown to really love myself being single. But in terms of how I got started on this, I'd be chatting with my girlfriends who were in relationships or who were married, and I'd be like, let me tell you about this date I went on. And they were like, this is a ridiculous story. Like, this couldn't have happened. And I'm like, no, this is exactly what happened. This is how it happened. And so then we got to a point where they were like, you should write a book about this. Like, there's crazy stuff.
How many people have said that in conversation with their friends? Oh, you should write a book. I've said it a million times to my friend Todd that all the dates I've been on. It's like, wow, you should write a book about this.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks say that they should write a book, but
you did.
Yeah, there's some time and dedication that it takes to actually sit down and do it.
Yeah.
And part of it being single and
you got time.
I do have time, and I'm pretty good at allotting my time as well. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and actually outline this. That was the first thing that I did. I was like, oh, I've been on 100 first dates, or at the point where I started to write it, I had been on 90-ish dates, I think. And so every time I would go somewhere, I'd ask myself, have I been on a date here? And I would be like, oh yeah, I've been on 3 dates to this place. And one of them was with the guy who picked me up from my house. I can't believe I let a stranger pick me up from my house, right?
This is in the early days.
This is in the early days.
20
yes,
maybe?
Yeah. Well, it's actually not chronological. It's more content based. There's one chapter called "There Was Crying Involved." There's one that was called "What Was I Thinking?" And then "What Was He Thinking?" And then we're still Facebook friends. So there's some great stuff.
I so have that.
Yeah, right? And there's been some interesting backlash about from the men in the book that I'm still Facebook friends with, to kind of hear some of the different feedback that I've gotten from different guys that I'm still Facebook friends with.
I have such good friends now because of this. Yeah.
Well, it turns out you might have good friends, but they don't want themselves to be in a book where other people might read about what they did.
Oh.
Yeah.
You can't just change the name?
I did change the name, but even still, and they're like, well, I know who I am. And I'm like, but no one else knows who you are. Why are you upset about this?
Wow. Maybe 101.
Sure. 101. I think you're closer to 137.
No, you stopped at 100.
Something
She said
100
she's got a
in
sequel
the
coming
book.
up.
Yeah. There's a website that has a couple more stories and stuff.
Yeah.
So, in the early days, dates 1 through 10 are probably a whole lot different from how you accept a date 90 to 100. Right?
Yeah.
You change your process and how you filter them out?
Well, I think even the first date in the book is literally the first date that I ever went on when I was 17, and my friends, I couldn't even talk to men when I was, boys, right, when I'm 17.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to talk to the opposite sex at that point in my life, and so the first story is basically about how one of my girlfriends set me up with this guy, and we went on a group date, and I didn't say 2 words the entire date because I was just so I was like, I don't know how to talk to him, and then it turns out she hadn't even told him that we were on a date, and I still didn't say 2 words. I know, it's super painful. Every time I read it out loud, I'm like, I just want to.
Bad of her.
Yeah. She was also a little bit awkward with men, and that's a whole other. That's her own book, right? She can write her own book about her experiences. And so it grows from that into I don't know, just dealing with men in general, and finally having enough self-confidence to go out on a date with literally like being able to talk to literally anybody. Like, oh, you only sell weed to your friends. That's fine. Like if you're only selling weed to your friends and family, like that's different than if you're selling weed to like the general public, right? Or like, oh, you don't have a cell phone or a job or a car and you live at home. That's all right. You seem like a really good person.
I thought I was unique with those dates.
No, but I think part of it is like every person. It's not that I think that like my story is completely unique. Like I'm the only one who's been on these dates. I really think that like women in general have had these kinds of experiences, and so it makes it really relatable, right? And I think the big thing I want to get out there is like you're not alone in what you've experienced, and that like it's okay to go on these dates, but you need to, like if you're going to go out on a date, you need to like let a friend know that you're going out on this date, and you need to send a picture of their profile and tell somebody you're going to check in with them, and don't let them pick you up at your house, and don't go to their house for a first date, and like, hey, these are some warning signs of like when a dude only wants to sleep with you. And I think unfortunately those are things I had to learn by like trial and error, as opposed to like having that ingrained in me or instilled in me, or like learning that, I don't know, it just...
Is there kind of a stigma with online dating where it's very personable and people can just do it all by themselves, and there's not a lot of other connection with other people? So I guess it's very solitary in a way. Because you're on your phone, you could be anywhere on your phone, you don't have to communicate with other people. So it's difficult.
I think online dating can be difficult. I think in part because it seems very solitary, and then it can also seem really overwhelming.
Which is a good reason why this book, you're sharing this book with other people, so they can get an idea of what to expect.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Avoid some of the early dates, the bad dates.
Right. And I think in part, when us ladies who've been single for a while, and I think men too who've been single for a while, are already aware of like what's happening in this book, of like the things you're coming across, and the men, at least for me, like the men who are not punctual, or I get stood up, or they think that they're treating me with respect, and my version of respect and their version of respect are two very different things. And it seems like a no-brainer, and yet I think the way that we communicate maybe is different, or like it's also taught me to be much more direct. Like I don't have the time or energy to play games with people. Like if you're not going to say something because you are going to, like if you're trying to like get me to say something because you want me to say something, like I just need you to ask me directly instead of hemming and hawing and beating around the bush and whatever it is that you're doing. Like it's just a weird thing. I don't know. So I think that's part of it. And then I think for like the folks who've been married for a while who have never experienced the online dating thing. I mean, I know my girlfriends and I have like swiped through Tinder together, or we've looked at profiles, or I've sent pictures of like the first messages that I've gotten. But I think for those folks, like it's an opportunity for them to say, oh, this is what it's like. And I've had a couple girlfriends that are like, so after reading your book, I've definitely like hugged my husband and given him a kiss and told him how thankful I am for him. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks for that. I'm going to sleep on myself again.
So that was going to ask you,
You say
were
marriages.
Sure.
you married previously, or?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope, always single.
For us, we've been married for a long time, and
Not to each other.
recently,
Not
Correct.
to each other. Okay.
Thank you for
Yeah,
clarifying.
sure.
we have
You
both
never know. You have
experienced.
no
We have
idea.
both
I'm sitting close to
experienced.
her. She's a lot cuter than you, Mark. Sorry.
So we have both experienced being married and recently divorced. And
Yes.
all that.
Okay.
Being on the
Be
line.
longer than you.
On the onlines?
Wow. It sounded like a great idea at first. Online dating, you can swipe left or right, who you like, who you don't like, and you can kind of weed people out by their profile.
Someone's been on Tinder or on OkCupid. Which one of those two with the swiping? Okay.
And Bumble.
And Tinder, Bumble, OkCupid,
Fish.
Plenty of Fish,
Fish.
eHarmony,
Match.
Coffee Meets Bagel. Have we done that?
No.
Match.com.
Oh,
Someone
Okay.
just told me about Hinge.
Hinge. That's another one. So
Yeah,
I've tried.
I'm like half set up. I haven't.
So
And then you got all your specialized ones for like gay men. Have Tinder? No.
no, Grindr.
Blender.
Oh, Blender. There's Grindr, and then I mean, there's also like specialty in sort of in terms of like Christian Mingle,
Right.
And then
Farmers.
FarmersOnly.com. You don't have to be lonely at FarmersOnly.com. And then Black people meet.
Jewish.
Yeah.
I've seen.
Yeah. There's all kinds of like specialty stuff if you're in the
If you're really
specialty
selective.
group that's really like what you want to be located into. So I think it's interesting. Have you read Aziz Ansari's Modern Romance?
No.
It's a great book, especially if you're new to the online dating world. Like for somebody who's been in the online dating world, all it did was like reaffirm the things that I already know about online dating. But one of the things Aziz Ansari talks about in the book is, you would think that with more options that we would be more easily able to find our quote unquote soulmate or the one.
Yeah.
But given more options, we actually get overwhelmed and it's harder to make a decision. Especially because we're trying to like find the perfect person, and at some point we have to realize that like no one is perfect, and even the person that you think is going to be perfect for you, they are still going to have flaws, and that's something that like we need to realize.
It's funny. I found my current girlfriend on OkCupid, and wasn't expecting much, but she turned out to be perfect for me.
Right.
And then I think it was at that point, just before I met her, I kind of gave up on this online dating. I'm like, all right, this is not for me. But of course I stayed on because I'm addicted.
Sure.
And I think when I let go, that's when I was able to really, like you were saying, you're expecting too much.
Yeah.
You're looking for somebody perfect, and you're not going to find somebody perfect.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, finding somebody who's like perfect for you. Or is interested in the things that you're interested in. I mean, it's so hard because you're like, I have to find someone who is interested in the things that I'm interested in, and that I'm like compatible with, that like I can get along with, and that I'm attracted to, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think fulfilling all of those categories is actually a lot to ask of somebody.
Yes.
There's what,
Absolutely.
7-8 billion people in the world. You cut it in half. 4 billion women for men. And then you gotta keep
And then
toning
who's
it down.
still single, and then who's interested in like.
Cut it in half
I'm
again.
a high school math teacher, so it's kind of challenging to find somebody who's actually like who likes math or who is interested in math or who isn't scared.
So you
off
come
by
home from
math.
a day at work and start talking about derivatives and diffie-qs.
Right, and I mean, I get a lot of dudes who are like, wow, you must be really smart. I got through Algebra 1. And I'm like, so I'm already not interested in you. You're not going to understand anything that I'm talking about. I have a degree in mathematics. Like, I have a bachelor's in math and a master's in education. And I have a wide variety of interests as well. So, like, it's hard because I know that I'm never going to find anybody who, like, checks all of the boxes of the things that I'm interested in. So,
Right.
That spark.
yeah, but I think it's also... Like, it's also a book about how it's okay to be single, and I think there's a societal stigma, or there previously was. I think we're starting to like progress away from that. That it's okay to be single and be happy. Like, it used to be that those were two mutually exclusive things.
Right.
Like, you could either be single or you could be happy, but society was like, well, you can't be single and happy. There's no way that
Society
could
wants
happen.
you to be married and be a part of the group social norm and everything.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't think as an overall society doesn't want you to be happy and single.
Right. Well, because then
Because
you're not.
you're up to no good.
Well, and you're not procreating, and you're not adding as another member to society. So, like,
To-
what are you
to
doing
the local
to the
church,
workforce? Yeah. I mean, I still have some friends that they're like, "Are you dating anybody?" And I'm like, "No, not right now." And then literally, they will not continue to talk to me because I clearly have nothing to add to the conversation if I'm not dating somebody.
Really?
Yeah, and then on to the next person, and then they'll ask somebody else if they're dating somebody, and then they'll end up talking about that person that they're dating, and so that's clearly more interesting than I'm writing a book, and I'm taking French lessons, and I went to the theater, and I have a trivia crew that I go with, and traveling, and all these things. Like, I have a variety of things that I'm doing, but if I'm not dating somebody, then obviously it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's really interesting that people still have that kind of belief that, like, you're not really anybody unless you're dating.
Is there kind of a stigma that if you're single and you're not dating anybody, then you can't be happy? Like you must be lonely. You must not know what to do with yourself.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think that they're expecting that I'm just sitting around waiting for somebody to ask me out, or that I'm spending all my time on OkCupid or something like that. And I'm just not. I don't know. I think maybe because I've been on over 100 first dates, I can kind of look at somebody already and be like, I don't know about this one, you know. What is with the punctuation? There's no punctuation in your sentence at all? At all?
No capital letters.
You wrote me what could have been 4 distinct sentences, and it was one long line.
And that's bad coming from a math major.
Math major.
Not even an English major.
But no, for
She's
sure.
not even checking grammar.
Well, I think so. You know, when people are really harping on that, at least for me, what I've kind of figured out is it's more about the effort that you're putting into what you're composing. And so if you're coming at me with this sentence that you have composed, but you haven't taken any forethought or any effort to put a capital letter and a period and another period, and you've proofread
What
it.
about the Oxford comma?
I am pro Oxford comma, I will say. Not everybody is pro Oxford comma. But I think the big thing is that people, like when I look at something somebody's written in it, I'm like, you've spent no effort or time on this. What makes you think that like I'm going to give you my time when you haven't shown me that I'm worthy of your time, or you're worthy of my time, or anything like that? There's been no effort that's been put into what you're doing.
That's what I think is an important thing to note is it's like the people are just going for the numbers and they're just going through the motions. It's like if you're serious about establishing a relationship, it doesn't have to be a long-term, lifelong relationship, but just to establish a good friendship, make an effort, show who you are, make an honest effort to show who you are and what you bring into the table to the relationship.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it, right, is being honest and authentically yourself.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are scared to do that. I mean, like, it's hard to show up as yourself on a first date and not send, like, a representative of yourself on a first date. Oh, everyone's sighing. Is that a thing? Or is that everyone's like, I don't know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Right? You want somebody to, like, really, you want to put on a good first impression, so you can't show all of who you are, because if you lay all your stuff out on the table on the first date, they're like, never mind, I don't know who I was thinking you were, but you're too crazy to go out with, right?
I can honestly say I didn't do that. I am who I am. If you don't like me for who I am, okay. That's okay.
Right.
You don't have to.
Right.
Let me move on.
Yeah. I think
most people are like that, where they put up the front, they hide a lot of stuff because they don't want to disappoint somebody. It's just like, just be honest, because eventually it's going to come out.
It's going to come out, right?
You're just wasting time.
Scared of rejection.
I went on a date. I went on a date with a guy. Told me he had no kids. He was divorced. A couple dates down the line, he's like, "Look at pictures of my 2 kids," and I was like, "Your 2 kids?" And he's like, "Yeah, I told you." And I'm like, "No, you never told me." Also turned out to be an alcoholic and a pathological liar. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
So out of 100 dates,
Yeah.
did you have any like long-term relationships or like significant relationships?
I mean, I had some significant relationships. I wouldn't say like long term. Couple months. But things either like one of them, he ended up moving, and we tried to make it work again, and he just ended up being not a great person overall. But post book, he read his story and was like, "So I owe you an apology." And I was like, "You definitely do." So he knows that part of it, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, I've had some decent dates out of it. They're not all terrible, and like some of it is the ways that the guys have messed up, and some of it is the ways that I've messed up on the date, right?
Did you learn a lot about yourself through all these 100 dates too?
Sure. I mean, one of the dates that's in there is an early date that I went on, like early in my dating career, I guess you would call it. And it was like the perfect date. He was so nice and so sweet, and I was like, he's too nice, right? And it's like because I've got all these issues that I have to work through that I'm like, he's too nice. I need to break up with him, and I broke up with him on social media, like so that's where he read it was on social media with like the rest of our friends reading it, and I was like, I'm such a jerk. I'm such a terrible person. And we remained Facebook friends, and he actually was the first person to read the book once I published it. and wrote me just the nicest review. And I was like, oh, it was so sweet. And I was like, yeah, I messed that one up for sure. But I mean, I don't think it would have worked out in the long run. But it was just really nice that it was really, really reassuring that there are nice guys out there, right? I think that's the big part of it.
And that brings up the next question.
Okay, do it.
I don't know even how to phrase this.
Something about nice guys. Why do women break up
the nice
with the
guys
nice
always
guys?
finish last?
I have a theory about this. I have a theory about almost everything. And I think, so women spend their early days of dating, and especially as teenagers, we're pushing boundaries. All teenagers are pushing boundaries, right? We're trying to find out what's okay and what's illegal and who's going to push back and that kind of thing. And I think that dating a bad guy is the easiest way to kind of push boundaries, because we don't necessarily have to do the boundary pushing ourselves. We can watch a bad guy kind of push the boundaries. And also we as women are fixers, right? We're nurturers, and so we can tame the bad boy and that kind of thing. So I think women in their early to mid, maybe late 20s, maybe early 30s, I don't know, maybe 40s, maybe if we've never dealt with our stuff, we have a tendency to date the bad boys because they're much more dangerous and they create a sense of drama, even though we think that that's not what we want. I think drama is so much more interesting and exciting than not, yes, boring, but comfortable, right? It's much more interesting than comfort is. But once we've gotten past that stage, I think women have a tendency to that comes in the late 20s, early 30s, maybe mid 30s, maybe late 30s, maybe never, I don't know. We get to a point where we're actually the comfort is much more interesting and much better than the dude who's gonna fly off the handle and get in a bar fight and get arrested and blah blah blah. That stops being fun because or exciting because I'm 36. I don't want that anymore. That's not where my life is going, and I want to be able to have did you just look at me and try to figure out if I was 36? Is that what that was?
8 years younger. Holy. No, I was really? I thought mid-20s.
Oh, great. Yes, no, I'm 36. I'll be
How does
37
she have 100
pretty soon.
first dates before she even turns 30?
Part of
But
it I was
it's
thinking,
possible. You go on, okay, math-wise, right? You go on one date a week.
it's very
per
feasible.
year, that's 52 dates in 1 year.
Times,
that's 2 years to be able to go on 100 dates. If you think, if you go on one date per week, and I know people who go on 3-4 dates a week, right? So, and you know what's funny is I don't think I'm the only person who's gone on 100 first dates. I think there are many women out there,
and that's very reasonable.
Many men out there who've
I
gone
think
on
it's
100 first
It's
dates.
reasonable. I wish I had that minute.
Yeah, you
I think there are some people who are I have a girlfriend who's I would never go on 100 first dates. I can't even bring myself to go on 2, right? She can't get online. She's got all this nervousness about being able to do any sort of online dating. And she's I can't bring myself to do it. And so, she's read the book being if you can put yourself out there for 100, I've got to be able to put myself out there for 1 or 2. And then I've got another friend who's I didn't meet my guy until 198. And I was I can't believe somebody else actually counted. And if I have to go on 198 dates to meet the one, I might cry.
If it's
I don't
the
know.
one.
Maybe.
Not the one, but the one.
The one. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you can honestly say that you're having at least a decent time throughout the 100, I think it's worth it to wait to get that 101, the one.
Yeah. I think dating can be fun. It's the idea. I'm an extrovert, so I think that helps with the actual dating process. Because I think when you're an extrovert, it's much easier to put yourself out there and to meet people. Because I really enjoy meeting people, and I think there are a lot of introverts who do not enjoy meeting people, and so the idea of going out with somebody is really anxiety ridden. And feels really draining to actually go on a date.
You're only comfortable being extroverted when they're with somebody they know?
Yeah, or even being an extrovert with somebody that they know. Introverts, they re-energize from being by themselves. They don't re-energize from being with people. Whereas extroverts re-energize, like, if I'm by myself for too long, I go a little stir crazy. Like, I have to interact with people and I need to talk to people. And so for me, talking to people at a bar or something like that is a lot easier and feels more comfortable and natural than it does like being at home by myself all the time. So in that way, like, some aspects of dating actually feel kind of fun. Like, I love listening to people. I like hearing their stories and getting to know people and making friends. And that's why New Orleans has been great, is because I've made like multiple friends just talking to people in New Orleans. So
this is a good place to do that.
It's a great place. Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely.
All right, so it's 100 First Dates, and it can be purchased at 100firstdatesbook.com.
That's my website. There are actually some extra stories on there in addition to the stories in the book. So there's some new stories there. You can actually go on Amazon and purchase 100 First Dates. It's available on Kindle and in paperback. I have an Instagram as well at 100 First Dates Book.
Oh wow,
Nice.
Photos and events and things like that coming up. So, yeah.
I'm excited.
Thanks. Yeah.
This would be good, something good to read on the way back home.
So
This might have made the whole New Orleans trip.
I can see this being made into a movie.
I would love
Yes.
that. It's fun because you can literally just pick it up and read like one story in the middle or whatever. So you can read like one or two stories at a time, or you can read it straight through. It makes great Christmas gifts as
He was
well.
downstairs and saw a copy on the bar and just opened it up and said, looked at the first sentence, is like, yeah, you know.
It was. Literally, it was like the preface. I was like, holy shit.
Can you say that on the radio? Is that something you
I'm
can
gonna have
say
to
on the
edit
radio? We're gonna edit it.
it.
Great. I was doing so well to not curse.
My fault, always. Yes. Holy cow.
OMG.
Yes. I was like, she had me in the first two lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun book.
You should buy a copy.
You should
Oh,
buy
I
it.
already decided.
Desiree, thank you very much for taking the time. Oh my gosh. Do I have this much storage on my phone? I don't know. Desiree Kent, 100 First Dates. I definitely highly recommend a collection of encounters that will make you laugh, cry, and cringe. Perfect. I think anybody who would ever go on 100 dates and write a book about it could say the same tagline: laugh, cry, and cringe.
Yeah.
There's all of that.
There's all of that in there. All of that in there. That could all happen in one date.
Yes.
Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you.